welcome back to Storytime! Today I have another Pete the Cat book! Falling for Autumn. Written and illustrated by Kimberley and James Dean. But before we read this fantastic story, please subscribe and like. I'm sure you'll have a spooky time in Halloween. Pete the Cat Falling for Autumn. It is the first day of fall, and Pete the Cat is feeling blue. I like summer better, he says. In summer, I can swim and surf and play at the beach. Maybe you just need to remind yourself of all the things you love about autumn, Mom suggests. Pete says. I'll try. Pete finds Grandma in the kitchen. She's baking delicious pumpkin pies. The whole house smells sweet and spicy. Pete loves helping Grandma bake pumpkin pie, but he loves helping eat it even more. After the baking is done, Pete puts a squat orange backpack from the counter and slips it into his backpack as a souvenir. Next, Pete heads to the town corn maze. Pete and his friends wander through the long, twisty paths made of all tall corn stalks. The best part of the corn maze is getting lost and having to start over all again. As he leaves, Pete plucks a golden corn cob from the maze and places it into his backpack. Then Pete visits Grandpa, who is knitting on the porch. Grandpa helps Pete using the knitting needles to knit the yarn into cool patterns. Together, Pete and Grandpa made a long, cozy scarf for Pete to wear. Well, that scarf looks groovy. When they're done, Pete chooses a little ball of yarn and places it inside his backpack. Next, Pete goes to the hayride at the park. Pete, Bob, Mom, Dad, and Grandpa all pile up in a wagon filled with hay. Then they go on a bumpy wagon ride around the park. Woohoo! Pete shouts. At the end of the ride, Pete grabs a handful of sweet-smelling hay from the wagon and stuffs it into his backpack. Look at his backpack. It's like it can burst out of things. He might buy a new backpack. I hope he takes it out at the end when he goes home. Pete heads over to the apple orchard where he and Callie go apple picking. They eat sweet apple donuts and drink hot apple cider and fill their buckets with apples of all different shapes and sizes. Before he leaves, Pete chooses a round, red, juicy apple and drops it into his backpack. Okay, that backpack is too small for anything else. I hope he stops. Pete stops by the park. He plays touch football with Bob and their friends. Pete scores a touchdown and everyone cheers. After the game, Pete grabs Bob's football and stuffs it into his backpack. It barely fits. I told you, Pete, if you want bigger backpack, you would have gotten in this trouble. Finally, Pete heads back home, but he stops in his front yard, which is covered in bright leaves falling from the trees. Pete helps his dad rake into the big, colorful mounds. Then Pete runs and jumps into all the leaf piles. So, look at that. He's just gonna be whee! After he's done jumping, Pete picks a bunch of red and gold and orange leaves and stuffs them into his backpack. Pete, I think that's enough for today. Are you done? Finally, you're done. Pete's backpack is bursting with fall souvenirs. He can't wait to show Mom. I love autumn, Pete says. Wonderful, says Mom. You know, these would make a great decorations for Thanksgiving. So Pete helps Mom fill a basket with all his Mentos. They place it at the basket at the center of the table. You did a great job, Pete, says Mom. It's beautiful, says Dad. Is that my football? asks Bob. Just then the doorbell rings. Pete! Oh my God, Pete! Now Bob is so confused. The Thanksgiving guests are here. All of Pete's families and friends and gather around the dining room table. They tell stories and laugh at jokes while they eat. Everyone is having a great time. Pete looks around the table and smiles. He loves a lot of things about autumn, but Pete knows what he loves most all year long. His friends and family. Look at that. Everybody just gathered around and Pete is holding pumpkin pie. Now I wonder what pumpkin pie tastes like. But the end. I hope you enjoyed reading this fantastic Thanksgiving story. Make sure to subscribe and like. See you later in another story. Bye, reader friends! And also, a note to Pete, buy a bigger background so you don't have to get in that problem! Goodbye, bye-bye, friends.